I represent the part of Google that does maps, so geo in its broadest context. And I hope what you'll see over the next half an hour is actually much of what we do in terms of making maps and in identifying things, where things are on the planet, actually integrate with a lot of the other stories you've heard this morning. Because when you think about it, ultimately, what Google is about is finding things. And often the things are located somewhere, and the somewhere is an important element, important part of the way of identifying the information that's relevant to an individual. And often the map is invisible, it's behind the scenes, it's not obvious that you're necessarily using a map. That said, a good starting point is the traditional map. And it wouldn't have been that long ago that if you come to visit London, you would have pulled out one of these street atlases, or if you were visiting San Francisco, a street guide of that particular city. And these atlases are still published and people still buy them in the bookshops. But those maps haven't really changed in about 100 years. And although they work really well because they don't need a battery, they are quite limited in actually how you can make use of them. When we talk about maps, we're actually talking about things that on the surface look like these old street atlases, but are actually much more powerful. Let me give you an example. Here is Google Maps of London, and I'm searching for, in this case, a Thai restaurant in the neighbourhood of St Pancras, so just up the road really from where we are. And I'm pulling up some information. Yes, I have the street map, but I'm using it to search for content, and that content that is displayed to me is coming from all sorts of different sources, from reviews of some of my friends who have been identified via Google+, content from Zagat. I can get directions, I can search nearby for other things, I've got a photograph. But it still looks like a map. Much of what we do, though, is hidden behind the scenes. It's not obvious that you're actually using mapping and geography when you actually are. For example, if you go to the Google search engine, we've worked out at about roughly 1 in 3 searches that people search for actually do have a geographical element to them. So Addy, remember, he was searching for his camera. Well, at some point when he goes to buy his camera, he's going to need the locations of the stores that stock that particular camera in relation to where he is at any particular point in time. Now, he might not explicitly type in camera shops near where I am, but we need to know that. We need to know where he is, when he's searching, and we need to know the stores that are nearby that will have that particular camera or be a supplier of that camera. Now, when we think about this, we always have a similar thought experiment. And it's not actually a thought experiment. Being geeks, it's something that we do all the time. And that is finding a pizza. How do you go about finding a pizza? And, you know, things hadn't turned out well for this guy in November. This might well have been, you know, a major part of what he spent his future doing. We've been trying to find pizzas since pretty much the beginning of Google. And finding pizzas was one of those things that initially got us into local and into mapping. And it's interesting to go back in time and to see how things have changed. We went back to 2004. If I was searching for pizzas, this was Google Local of the time, it would pull up limited information about a particular pizza store, and I would have to type, I'm searching for pizza, and I'm in Palo Alto. I'd have to separate that query out myself as an end user. I'd be forced to say, I'm searching for this, and I'm here. And I'd get back maybe 1 or 2 results, and I've hidden it behind this screen here, but I'd get a map that was produced by this company called MapQuest. You might have heard of them. They were famous ones. Now, if I type pizza, it actually automatically identifies where I am. You know, it auto-completes. It says, okay, you're near Palo Alto. Here's all the pizza restaurants that are nearby, and look at all the rich content that I now have available to you from all of that information that we have got access to across the rest of the internet. Reviews, photographs, content that those particular site owners may have put together. So although superficially it looks quite the same, actually there's a lot of work that's gone on behind the scenes to make that a much more sophisticated result. If I actually look at that result in more detail, pull up what you'd actually see, well, clearly you'd see a map. And the map is now something that we create ourselves rather than having to use MapQuest. We have photos that have been taken indoors for that particular pizza restaurant. We have what it looks like from the outside, from Street View. We have reviews. Those reviews can be, if you like, kind of professional restaurant reviews, or they might be the reviews of my friends using that Google Plus that we saw earlier. Details of opening hours, the nearest transit if I want to get there using public transport, menus from urbanspoon.com, and other reviews from around the internet. All of that information brought together. So in terms of decision making, me just typing in pizzas, I pull up all of this information that's relevant. And of course, all of that information that's relevant also available to me on my mobile device, be it a phone or a tablet. And most of our users now are coming to Google Maps and are looking for local content via their mobile devices, more than come via the traditional website. And it's a big number. We've heard lots of numbers thrown around. We have about 1 billion monthly active users of Google Maps at this point in time. Certainly 1 billion people have also downloaded Google Earth and make use of that. And that's a really big number. We think today people have access to mapping more than there's ever been the case in any point in our history. People get access to geographical content. They use it in their day-to-day lives. And that's really what we're interested in. We want this to be something that you come back to, that you use part of your day-to-day life, and it's something that is there as a helper, is there to help you make decisions during the day. So how do we do this? How do we build all of this infrastructure that sits behind the scenes? Sometimes it's exposed as the map, but sometimes it's there behind making your search work better. Well, we heard a little bit about Street View earlier. We spend a lot of time getting images of the world. We get a lot of aerial photography. We have an aeroplane there. There's the Street View Jeep driving through. In this case, I think it's down near Port Elizabeth. We actually have this is a good picture. We have a tricycle with a Street View camera on it, but attached to a train, because we wanted to get some images of this famous railway in Switzerland. It's very sort of very beautiful, very keen touristic approach. The easiest way to do it would be to strap the guy on. And because of health and safety regulations, bizarrely, we actually had to have a cyclist on the bicycle despite the fact he was on a train. Not quite sure. You know, the brakes didn't work, had no effect, but there you go. And you saw the guy going down Grand Canyon using his Street View. But we spent a lot of time gathering images at those different scales. So we have aerial photography that comes from satellite images. We have this oblique imagery now, which gives you like the sort of view as if you were looking out of an aeroplane. So it's kind of looking down at an angle. And then the Street View imagery that in many ways our users find the most valuable because it's the least abstract. It's like you're standing on the street corner. And we regard this as the last level of zoom. You know, you zoom in, you zoom in, you zoom in, and then you're standing on the street corner and you can look around. And it's very powerful because it's the way that we see the world. We don't pretend to see the world as maps. Now let me give you an example of what I mean. And this is a dangerous experiment for this time in the day because your blood sugar levels are kind of dipping, and although it probably would be more dangerous if you'd just eaten. What I want you to do is to close your eyes, slow your breathing down as much as you can, calm, and I'm going to mention a place name, and I want you to just record what you see when I mention that place name in your mind's eye, okay? So if I mention the Grand Canyon, okay? Open your eyes now. Now remember what you saw. What you saw was probably not this. This is a really nice map, and for me as a geographer, I love this. This is our terrain view of the Grand Canyon in Google Maps. And it's fantastically detailed, and we're really proud as geographers of how well we rendered this. We think this is fabulous. But actually, for most people, that's not what they think of when you talk about the Grand Canyon. When you talk about the Grand Canyon, what most people think of, hopefully, is this. This is the street view that we took with that guy walking down the path using that contraption on his back. It's quite heavy. You have to be quite fit to do this, so we can carry on walking along. And again, it's not the same clearly as being there. The scale of the Grand Canyon is something that you can only really appreciate if you're there. But that's much closer to what we imagine the Grand Canyon is like than that traditional cartographic representation. Not that there's anything wrong with maps. They're a very powerful way of representing often complex things. But actually having these images for lots of places around the world is really, really important. And we continue to invest hundreds of millions of dollars in terms of collecting this imagery because it is so useful to our users. All right, let's get back to my slides. Now, remember, I showed you that picture that was what we call oblique imagery. So like if you're looking out of an aeroplane, you're looking down at 45 degrees. We have that imagery available in Google Maps, and it's very useful. But we can also use it in a technique that's called digital photogrammetry. And we can use those images to create three-dimensional models of the places that we've flown over in our aeroplanes. And I just want to show you a very quick video of what that looks like. So here we are. This is the three-dimensional data that is produced by those aircraft. And when you take the 3D content and then you put the photographs on top of the 3D content, you end up with these very photorealistic views of the cities. And this is different to how Google Earth used to work. Google Earth used to work by combining lots and lots of data together, captured at different times. So it never quite felt right. Whereas this is data that's all captured pretty much at the same time. So the shadows are all consistent, and it feels like you're flying over any particular area in a little helicopter. And again, this is something we're putting a lot of effort into collecting this data because it gives you that real sense of what a particular place is like, and it's easy to explore. In many ways, that's what we spend an awful lot of our time doing, is collecting data. And you know, it's something that we have taken about 7 or 8 years to kind of work out how to do this well. And it means that you end up having to take lots of different approaches to try and get the level of detail, the level of content, the level of accuracy that our users demand when they're out using Google Maps. One of the places I want to show you getting a map of is here. Anyone guess the place I'm talking about? Casablanca. Casablanca was one of those parts of the world where the traditional sources of mapping that you might go to get digital mapping data had just ignored. It was a part of the world that they were not interested in, and remains a part of the world where it's still hard to buy commercial mapping data. So we've taken an approach to allow our users, to ask our users to help us complete the maps of those parts of the world where otherwise mapping data wasn't available. And we call this Project Mapmaker. And I'm just going to show you a quick video that represents a year of our users, in effect, creating the map of Casablanca. So here we are starting off, not very much there. And as the year progresses, you see, in this case, it's probably a few hundred users starting to contribute, and it ends up being a very, very detailed map of Casablanca, equally detailed as you might find in many other parts of the world. And it's contributed by our users. And our users bring that unique perspective of those places that are important to them, those things that make a difference. And this is a really exciting project. It's the way that maps increasingly will be kept up to date in the future. It allows us to map places like this. This is Pyongyang in North Korea. North Korea, as you can imagine, is a very, very difficult place to get mapping. You know, you can imagine turning up at the airport with your Street View kit and seeing how welcome you would be felt. But nevertheless, the locals there, people who have perhaps family in North Korea or have visited and knew the local neighborhoods, have helped to start to build these maps. And for the first time in many cases, these maps are being created and made available. So where are we going to go next? Well, we're very good at creating maps now. and we've got most of the world covered in a pretty good level of detail we're quite happy with. But actually, certainly here in the West and in the developed world, we actually spend somewhere in the order of about 70% of our lives somewhere that we haven't been able to create maps of. Know what we're talking about? We spend 70% of our time indoors. And we've not been able to take all that really detailed mapping that you can experience outside into buildings. And often those buildings are quite complex. So this is a major shopping centre just on the outskirts of London called Bluewater. And this is what Google Maps looks like of Bluewater. It's a big building. Inside that building, there are hundreds of individual shops, there are restaurants, there are toilets, there are cash points. There's a lot of places that you might want to visit, a lot of places you can get lost in, a lot of places you want to find your way around, and we just can't help. Well, at least traditionally, we've not been able to help you because it's indoors. Well, we're trying to change that. This is the local department store to our offices in Victoria. This is Peter Jones on Sloane Square. And Peter Jones is run by the John Lewis Partnership, and they got in contact with us as they were rolling out Wi-Fi infrastructure for inside of the store. So as you're wandering around the store, you can be checking the goods and products you're buying online on your smartphone or on your tablet, and they're always very confident that they'll always match a low price, so they put this infrastructure in. But the infrastructure has a great benefit for us because we can use the Wi-Fi infrastructure to locate where someone is inside the store. Because Wi-Fi works in many ways similar to the cell towers that give you a normal signal to your mobile phone, and we can use those to locate you. It means we have to go and survey the store first, but then once it's done, we'll be able to locate where you are. So here's actually what it looks like if you're wandering around this particular department store, and we have it now for department stores, railway stations, some airports. You have Google Maps running on your Android phone. You have the internal store layout that in this case Peter Jones provided us with, and you can see a little blue triangle there. Let me zoom in, that represents your actual location, which is fantastic. You know, you can find out whereabouts you are, where the other departments are. Peter Jones is a relatively simple store, but somewhere like a big railway station or an airport, this is really, really valuable. And it works accurately enough to locate you within a few meters, so you know certainly which department you're in or which gate you're near if you're at an airport. Let me sync up a bit more with what Eddie was talking about in terms of the importance of personalization and Google+. This is my map of the area I live in, Teddington, in southwest London. And I say it's my map because it is literally my map. I'm the only person that sees this map. If I type maps.google.co.uk and I'm logged in, you can see my icon there from Google+. I get a personalized version of the map, and it's personalized in a number of ways. You can see a little icon here. This represents where I live. Remember, we were talking about the idea of those Google Now knowing where you are. That's important for this sort of application. And you'll see some of the businesses around the neighborhood are highlighted. They have a little yellow circle around them. They're businesses that I've visited and that I've made reviews, I've commented on. So it's a kind of a personalized map. And one of the places that I've visited is this place, the Builders Arms, which is my local pub. And in the UK, your local pub is really important. And I could try to describe it to you, say, it's a traditional local pub. Much better that I give you a photograph. I'll show you actually what it's like to be inside the Builders Arms. So again, the demo gods are working for us. I'll take it inside my local. And this is what it's like. So this is street view inside my local pub in Teddington. Very traditional pub. Actually quite small. But they know me, I know them. I quite like the beers. I wouldn't recommend the Becks, that's not so brilliant. But the local Young's is very good. But that's my local pub. And, it's great for me to sort of describe that to you and to tell you the story of this is how I experience my local pub. Okay, now, how many people here would you say, how many of you are people that have studied geography at some point in your careers? A few people. Okay, so I'm not going to upset you by saying the map of the future is not a map. I often speak to audiences at mapping conferences and I get thrown out at this point. But with you, it's a safer audience because the map of the future isn't a map. In that, all that content that we've been talking about in terms of where you are and all the stuff that's around you is geographical content, but perhaps how you will experience it as a user won't be in the form of a traditional map. This is what I mean. And to demonstrate this, I'm going to use Google Now and take you through a day of my life last year. So here I am standing outside my house, Teddington, southwest London. You know that much about me. I pull up my phone. I do that swipe with my thumb to pull up Google to pull up Google Now. And this is what the information it gives me. Now, key here is I've not asked explicitly for any of the information that I've been provided with here. So it's looked into my calendar and it sees that I'm about to take a flight, BA City Flyer, flight 8475. Its current status is on time, departing from London City Airport at 9:45, arriving in Nice at 12:32. I was going to meet some MBA students at EHIC in Nice. And it gives me navigation instructions to get to London City Airport with current traffic conditions as it was at 6:43 in the morning. It would take me 56 minutes to get there. Now, all of that information has been provided to me without me asking. It knows where I am, so it can work out all the navigation details. It knows what I want to be able to do because of my calendar, and it's used that calendar to go off and look to find out what the current traffic conditions are. And those traffic conditions clearly is dynamic data. If I clicked, it would say, okay, well, here's the route. Here's the route that we suggest, but there are a number of different options that you could take. The information about this route is actually coming from other people who have got Android phones that are moving around, and those Android phones are giving us a real-time traffic feed of the traffic conditions in London at that particular point in time. But it so happens actually I want to take public transport. So I said, no, give me the instructions for public transport, and again, I don't have to tell it where I am because it knows where I am because of the GPS. It tells me I need to walk to the local railway station at Teddington. I then take the train into London Waterloo, then change, get off at Waterloo, get onto the Victoria line, how long it's going to take me to get there. Again, not having to explicitly ask for any of this. When I get to Nice, clearly I have to switch my phone off on the aeroplane. It's disappointing, but you live with that. Get to Nice. Again, I swipe the phone, goes to Google Now. Now presents me with different information. It tells me the weather forecast, much nicer in Nice than it was in London. It gives me translation tools between French and English, and it gives me the exchange rate between the euro and the GB pound. Again, I've not had to ask for any of that, but it now knows I'm in Nice, I'm in France, and it's providing me with different information based upon my context. Really what we're talking about is the end of a computing platform. This is a street view image of the park, the Palo Alto Research Center in Palo Alto, which is where desktop computing was invented. You remember the story of Steve Jobs being invited by Xerox to this research facility, being introduced to things like Windows and mice and laser printers and networking and going, huh, that's a good idea, I can make use of that, and going off inventing desktop computing. But we're at the point now where we're at the end of desktop computing. Our future devices will be things that we carry around with us. They'll be things potentially that we wear. And I'm going to show you now the Project Glass video that you've probably seen before. But I want you to watch this video thinking about how many of the activities that you see displayed are powered by geography, that are powered by your location. something else playing. All right, we'll do it without audio. You'll see what's happening. It's just going to save you some banjo music anyway. So as he's walking along, up pops a little icon, his glasses, tells him the subway service is suspended. You've already seen how that worked on the mobile phone when I was planning to go to the London City Airport. Given a map there, walking directions as I'm walking along. You know, we actually want to save people from walking along like this, which is a dangerous thing to do in city centres. Again, they're booking a ticket to a concert. It's not having to say where that concert's taking place. We're just doing the recognition of there is a concert happening. How do I book tickets? Indoor mapping here. Where do I find books on how to play the ukulele? Indoor mapping is key to that. His friend's sharing his location, so he wants to meet up at a coffee bar. Again, this is making use of the location of both these guys and the location of the coffee bar to bring these people together. So behind the scenes, yes, you've got some very clever technology in terms of the Project Glass glasses, but a lot of these kind of applications, and yes, they are future applications, are being powered by where stuff is, where the location of these activities are. And it's absolutely key to Google's approach to this is to do this in an integrated fashion. Maps is not just an app that sits on your phone or it's a particular website that you go to. Mapping and geographical content is actually intrinsic in lots and lots of different activities, in bringing those activities together. And that, in many ways, I think is a unique approach that we bring to this. Saying it's not just about a Maps app, it's actually about using geography as a way of organizing content, of a way of you interacting with your environment and finding things hopefully a little bit more useful in your day-to-day lives. What we're really talking about is an interaction, an area between the physical world, the world that we all experience in our day-to-day lives, and the virtual world that we've been used to using on the internet. And with things like Google Glass and with the apps that you have on your mobile devices now, we're bringing those two together and it's creating magic. Magic in the fact that, as Arthur C. Clarke said, you know, any sufficiently advanced technology is indistinguishable from magic. So when I pull my phone out and it tells me it's now time to leave to go to my next meeting, that feels magical. It's because it's that intersection of the real world and the virtual world. I think I've got about a minute left for questions. Thank you very much for listening.
Thank you very much for the interesting presentation. How frequent you update your maps? I mean, the Google Maps in the UAE where I work are very popular. How frequent you update them?
That's a very good question. And there's no simple answer, I'm afraid. It works at a number of different levels. So the actual basic underlying street map may be updated perhaps once every 6 months, once every year, at a sort of an overall view of it. But then if we are made aware of specific changes, they may happen within a matter of days. The information that sits on top of the maps in terms of reviews of restaurants or activities are happening, that's almost dynamic, that's almost real time. So that can be changing on a daily basis. So they work at sort of different frequencies. The underlying mapping data and the imagery doesn't get updated very often, but the information about places that you might want to go and visit, and particularly